coming up in questions and in my own reflections. You know, two or three terms I'd like to tease out because they are quite pivotal. You know, and wrongly handling these, wrongly grasping these, ideologically getting stuck on these. We take words as literal truths, rather than then we can really find we're in fact twisting our experience to try to fit a word. You know. And and one of the big ones, of course, is self, isn't it? You know, I mean, we have a woman she was training as a psychotherapist, doing a 4 or 5 year study, and she come to the monastery every week and really found it so helpful. Just the experience of listening to teachings, getting teachings, meditation, so helpful. It's really helped me so much. But finally, I just can't get over this sense of no self, because here I am trying to patch up people's selves and get into a healthy sense of self. You know, self, you know, they feel self-respect and a sense of self-worth rather than being all broken up and crumbly. And now, what's this bit about no self? So, you know, we went through that kind of thing. So that's one snagging point, isn't it? Because, of course, even in the Buddha's teachings say, you know, one should respect oneself, one should train oneself, this is for one's own welfare. So who's this? There's no self, you know, who's getting anything out of this? So you take this no self thing as kind of final ideological statement. That's pretty bleak. You know, you're just constantly trying to wipe out something that's actually quite fundamental. And so what I'd like to say, you know, is this is, you know, when you look at the way the Buddha used the word self, and what he challenged it on was things such as, is it changeable? Is it anicca? Is it relative? If it's relative, can it be satisfying and stable? If it's relative and changeable, can this be called your atta? And of course the word atta, self, in India meant something slightly different from what we're talking about. The atta was a kind of like an immaterial entity that lived inside you, that inside your body, or they didn't quite know what it was. Some people thought it was a tiny little thing in the heart. And when you passed away, this atta went out and unified with Brahma. You know. So he said, well, you know, have you ever seen one of these? No. And when you take any particular process, such as the bodily process, or the feeling process, or the process of the flickering realm of sense consciousness, to be, this is what I am, or I'm in this, or I'm one of these, you know, I'm this particular set of sensations and not those, right? We get caught up in affirmation and denial. I don't want to be that one, I want to be that one. Is that suffering or not? You know, isn't this what happens? There's bits of me that I'm quite okay with. Other bits I don't want to know about, you know. Yeah. And it's because of the process of affirmation and concretization and rejection, that causes this internal dissonance. Yeah. And that's all bound up with taking something that we can witness, touch, sense, feel, experience as this is the final, this is the real, this is the eternal essence of what I am. In short, atta, self. And so whenever that happens, notice what comes up. And what happens, Because whatever that we project that onto is subject to change, is not the complete picture, is not the full experience, it's subject to change, and then when it's gone, you've got to get another one. Or we're trying to reject some aspect of our experience. Suffering, stress, denial, internal conflict, distraction to get away from the difficult bits. That's the process. called upadana, or taking, it's a kind of instinct to hold on to something, to some finite, measurable thing. Upadana, grasping, clinging, feeding on, assuming something to be solid self. Now, what I said to the inquirer was, well, we have a word in Buddhism called citta. People translate it as mind, awareness. You could even call it psyche, if you like. You're a psychotherapist. And this is the self, or it's like a reference point to that which experiences, that which experience lands on, that which experience happens to, or seems to happen to. It's a result. Citta is something that is established in human consciousness. It means it's a self-reference. Yeah, doing this. Yeah, it's a self-reference. And citta does this. Citta is also dynamic. It's a dynamic process, and what it does is it turns. Yeah. It does that. So this is happening to me. Yeah. And then with that process comes the filling in the details of what the me is at this particular time. Body, feelings, sensations, thoughts, and so forth. That's another process. The citta is the turning of self-reference, and then off comes the information of what that may be at any time. And the information is changing all the time. The self-reference continues. Yeah? And for the average person anyway. And if it doesn't continue for the average person, there's either two experiences. One is psychosis, and the other is nibbana. So for most of us, that's probably something to, because you can't, if there's no sense of this is happening to me, where am I? It's a fundamental loss of ontology, of being anything. We just kind of, the mind is just sprayed out. It's inability to assemble anything. So one of the two things that citta does, just in its fundamental reflex, is it establishes a sense of being, stable being, relatively stable being, or beingness. And images flicker across that. Yeah. And we can, with a bit of practice, we can let images flicker across that, because we still have a sense of a stable being. Call it the witness or the watcher, or the mindful one, and that stuff can happen across that, And that's citta. As you say, it's the self beyond and even despite self-imagery. So as we train and practice, we find, actually I can be with rather unlovely thoughts. I can be with difficult emotions. I can be with painful feeling. That's how training is. Your citta becomes strong and resourceful, and that is totally healthy. And that's what I guess therapy is about, and it's a lot of what Buddha Dharma is about, establishing the healthy, strong citta. And it gets healthier and stronger the more our relationship to these self-images can become easier, freer, looser, more wise. When I say self-images, I don't just mean the pictures that come up. Self-images is a simplistic way of expressing it, but it's tones, mood tones. We feel kind of happy or unhappy. Mood tones. It's colouring. The sense of being is flavoured in some way.